Good evening slash afternoon. It's evening now, recording out here in Georgia. But here we have another guest. Here at the Between the Stripes podcast network. We're diversifying our portfolio a bit. We talk about college football a bunch, occasionally pro football, and now we're talking about indoor football. And yes, before you roast me, it's a whole great world of indoor football in America. And joined by me is Zach Keilman from the Gridiron Gallery podcast. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and just speak your piece before we start.
Well, first off, I'm going to say, Omar, take that with pride that you are a fan of any of these alternative leagues, because honestly, we got to spread the word. Let's not make this an awkward piece of our sports, at least Rolodex. Let's make this a normalcy to be talking about indoor and arena football. So, I'm glad to be on the show with you. Gridiron Gallery, for those of you who don't know, that is basically an alternative to regular NFL football podcast. We try and touch on stories from across the different leagues globally, really, at this point. 1 week we can talk about Japanese football. Next we can be talking about the CFL, and then we have bi-weekly NFL shows, my buddies. So, and sometimes we do touch on the IFL as well. I have another one, Inside the Walls, that touches on the NAL. So that's kind of why I say sometimes, but I still follow the leagues. I love the sport. I love all kinds of forms of the game. So I'm glad to be jumping on here and talking a little bit of some bits and pieces.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I'm glad to have you on. And I mean, alternative football, it's a funny name, but I mean, it's something to do, especially in the winter months, like just going to college up north in New York, being like snowed in on the weekends, and there's really not much for a single man to do but watch, for me, the AAF, the XFL on the Saturday. Like, I mean, one of my favorite games of all time. It sounds weird. I'm a huge college guy, as the viewers and listeners know, but one of my favorite games, just to, like, randomly think about, is the Orlando Apollos and a Salt Lake Stallions game in the snow. I remember just being so excited by that. I think for me, that's my favorite, one of my favorite games of all time, favorite IFL games of all time, or excuse me, AAF games / XFL games of all time. Yeah, because we're talking IFL, so I got a little mixed up. But yeah, I'm glad that there's people out there to talk about this, and without tuning us out, and it's not making us seem like we're crazy.
Absolutely. Good game, by the way, that you're referencing there. I remember that one very vividly. And I honestly, the main thing that sticks out is actually funny. The Apollo's jerseys for that, it was like the first time they used their alternatives, where it was like a solid blue with like kind of the orange trim. My favorite version of it. Still need one of those for my collection. But the snow it was one of the iconic moments of a unfortunately derailed league, but it is what it is. It's a good memory out of what came of the end result.
Exactly. I mean, I like to think about that than the demise of the league. But
Yeah.
well, a league that hasn't faced its demise yet is the IFL, which has been around for a long time. And for those of you familiar with indoor / arena football, yes, the Arena Football League was the big dog for years on end, until they folded. And I believe, was it 2019 or was it 2020 that they
2019? Yeah, November 2019. They packed it in, I'm afraid. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but almost 2 years.
They had a great run. Yeah, they had a great run. Now the IFL has appeared to really be the big league out of all the indoor leagues, because you have the National Arena League and then you have the American Arena League out west, which there's really not much coverage on that. But the IFL now, they're expanding. And Zach, you got a shirt of one of the newer teams that expanded into the league. I think they're the Bay Area Panthers now, not Oakland, but the
Correct.
Bay Area Panthers. And they added a team in Vegas, which is huge for the league, a huge market, because right now the league's filled with really mid-sized markets, Albuquerque, Worcester, both places I've lived in, not huge cities, but I mean, sort of like medium cities. And then, of course, your Dakota cities and whatnot. But this isn't a joke, really, with like the Bay Area and Las Vegas. So given the league's TV deal, do you feel like the league's in a good place stability-wise in the long term?
Well, I think they're on the right track. So one of the snags they had at the beginning of the season, at least the first 5 weeks, was, of course, the whole Louisville Extreme fiasco. That is now gone in the past. Everyone's beaten that one to death, I think. So for those, as a little bit of a cliff notes, Louisville basically was denied by the NAL. They went to the IFL. Unfortunately, some financials behind the scenes kind of were not exactly disclosed correctly, and things just kind of fell apart. But in terms of the IFL now that you remove Louisville, you have pretty much, I would say, a very stable ownership group, it seems, across the board now. And with the Vegas Knights, that's the thing with the Vegas Night Hawks. You have the Vegas Golden Knights ownership that is behind the Vegas Nighthawks, and they're tying into their branding and everything with this new expansion. It's in Las Vegas, which, credit, Las Vegas has not been a great city for arena in the past, at least in terms of stability, but the ownership group behind it is what gives me even more confidence in saying, oh my goodness, this helps push it a little bit more legitimate. Not only the TV deal, Stadium is great. I know I don't think as many people know what Stadium is as a sports network, but this helps with another piece of their package. And in terms of the IFL, it gives them production quality that puts them ahead of the NAL or the CIF or even the AAL if you want to add them in too. It's in terms of putting yourself in that spot where the AFL used to be. They aren't there yet. I will say that. They still have a ways to go, I think, to get there. But I think the big piece to me that's making them say, all right, there is now a definitive path, and I see what they're trying to do. Getting the Vegas Golden Knight ownership in, having them buy into this process, having them be part of this. We're seeing the first team that now has betting at least as a sponsor with the Rattlers. I imagine that's going to start coming a league-wide thing going into 2022. These are things that make you look professional. And if the Golden Knights themselves are impressed by the ownership, if this looks like it works, guess what? Guess who is tied into other NHL teams or other NBA teams, arena sports that are bigger, those that need some income in, say, the summertime that they can kind of supplement a little bit, like the AFL used to try and do with other bigger owners. That's the big step. You get that, you get more money rolling in. You can then get players paid more. It's good business, at least. I think it's a good start to what could be something that many, at least I see, ex-AFL fans want back in terms of looking top notch and top quality.
Those are great points. You touched on the credibility portion a lot, and I think that's huge for this league, whether it be cities or, like you said, partnering with arenas too. And I think the IFL had some semblance of that before the expansion, because you had the Iowa Barnstormers, everyone knows them. I mean, of course, Kurt Warner, and then the Arizona Rattlers too from the AFL days too. I mean, when they came to town, I told my brother, I'm like, hey, they used to be, big time stuff. I mean, they used to be in the video games and everything on NBC. And it was pretty cool to see them in the league that my hometown team was in. So I think that's great that they're parting. I had no clue that the Golden Knights ownership was behind the Nighthawks, but that certainly helps, having a sort of celebrity ownership group. And of course, like you said, gambling too. Like gambling, that brings people to the games. Like I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched meaningless games just because I was gambling on them. I mean, it's been a good amount of times. So those are all huge as well. And we'll have to see. I think for me, what gets me about the IFL is, and we'll touch on this a little bit more now, is the regional aspect of it, and that it's a very Western and Midwestern heavy league, which brings us to our next point, that the Massachusetts Pirates are alone pretty much on an island in New England. The closest team to them, I want to say, is it Iowa? I think Iowa's the closest team to them.
It would now be Iowa. Now, if Quad City comes back next year, which it sounds like they are, that would be closest. And that's in Moline, Illinois, Western Illinois. But yeah, Iowa in Des Moines, that is the closest you're going to get.
Yeah, which is really insane that for a league, I don't really know what the specifics on the TV deal money wise is. I can't imagine it's that much coming from Stadium. I think gate receipts are good out in Worcester at the DCU Center. But again, like I find myself wondering, how are they footing the bill for all the travel throughout the league? So I want to ask, like, do you think this is sustainable long term for the Pirates of Worcester?
Well, that is a very good question. And here, to relay kind of how this works in terms of cost, here's why you see regional, because they're out of the big three. You might notice the big three indoor football leagues, or I guess arena, they're really indoor because arena still needs nets. But to look at the kind of the regionalization of them, you notice how the NAL's East Coast, the CIF is completely dead center in the middle of America, going from basically Montana for next year all the way down to Texas at points. And then you have the IFL, which is essentially mostly West Coast with the sprinkling of Midwest up in the Dakotas and in Wisconsin, of course, in Iowa too. So that's to help with travel cost. Now, Massachusetts being in, of course, the far East Coast, it's not like you can just bus a team to every location. Many of these teams in their regions, they do buses or they do the cheapest mode of travel before they do flights. Massachusetts is kind of forced to fly, which is going to add on to your travel costs. And as much as I look at the crowds at the stadiums and I kind of see what they're drawing in, it's not bad. But in terms of arena and indoor profits in history's past, you're probably not drawing in much. I don't have any direct relation to any of the ownership there, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you're paying flights for every away game, and not to mention that you are going to, if you win this coming week here in the IFL playoffs, you're going to be traveling to Arizona. So that's another add-on for an entire team and your equipment. Yeah, it's kind of concerning. And I'll say another thing that concerned me, and I hope the IFL is going eastward, because they are hinting that they're going to expand to at least another city here before 2022. That was hinted in their Vegas Golden Knights press release, that they're still doing expansion. The thing that irks me a little is that they expanded to Massachusetts. They announced that Louisville was going to be part of the league. They were already there. They added Northern Arizona. And I understand that Arizona is a very popular arena, historical like state. I mean, the Rattlers have been successful for now 30 years now. This will be 30-year anniversary as of this year, 1991. So put that into perspective. But you add in the fact they put in now 3 teams in Arizona, and one of those was a new expansion this year, Prescott Valley, with the Northern Arizona Wranglers. And I just scratched my head because I was going, couldn't you add a team out east if you're trying to make this a national league? And, I just kind of question it a little bit. And, Massachusetts leaving the NAL was kind of internal political type of struggle. Apparently they did 1 or 2 things that were against league rules, and that's how they decided to move on. And some disputes, at least from what I understand, how that went down. So they needed a league. So that was also their choice. And the IFL is, in terms of legitimate and big, it's the next biggest, if not the biggest, ahead of the NAL. So yeah, if they want to stay, you need to expand east, I hope, here. Otherwise, if next year they have another season, I understand that Pirates ownership has deeper pockets, but you can't keep justifying losses to just play football games. There's got to be some profit involved, and either they're holding out to get an expansion team, or, they could always go crawling to the NAL again, but I don't know if that would be an option that you would want to take. Maybe more of a last resort.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really complicated situation. I find myself scratching my head too, especially you mentioned Northern Arizona and just tracking the IFL Twitter page and just seeing how bad they were this year. It was really laughable at times. I know it was just kind of pathetic, really. I mean, some of the
Yeah, there were
blowouts.
definitely moments, definitely some moments that I'm like, man, maybe you want to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to ask, like, in terms of trade-offs, like, is the national TV deal with Stadium worth it? Because even then, it's great to have that national slot, but you're competing with, in terms of sports, you're competing with Saturday Night Baseball on Fox. Yeah, Baseball Night in America. I'm trying to think like what other summer sports, but you also have the NBA playoffs at times against the IFL. So I wonder if this national TV and this national exposure is worth it, because I think for a lot of these teams, regional networks are really the end game for most of them. I saw Spokane. I was watching a Spokane game on the local CW.
Mm-hmm.
The Massachusetts Pirates have their games on NESN and NESN Plus. Really, really good exposure there. So I just want to know, do you think the national TV deal is worth Massachusetts staying in the IFL or going back to the NAL?
Well, I think it depends on what they're going to get out of it for the IFL. A lot of the leagues, if you're going to start jumping into TV, it's more about just getting on there. It's not really about profits from television at the gate, unless you have something that television, at least television broadcasters are like screaming that they want badly, or they're trying to throw you money. I'm assuming Stadium, I don't know how much, if any, money they're getting. My thought is maybe this is more of a we'll cover your production costs type of thing, and it's exposure, because usually a lot of these, like, even we can talk about how we jumped in the AAF. Now, credit, that was a time buy, which that was basically you're buying time on a network to then get exposure, with the idea being that you prove your product. The network then comes back and says, we want to buy you. This case, no one is really sure, at least that I can tell, what is part of this deal. if I had to guess, knowing how big Stadium is, it's not the size of CBS Sports or anywhere close to ESPN or anything. It's trying to establish itself. It's actually a over-the-air broadcasting network. It's not even cable. So you can actually get it if you have an antenna, and it's trying to be like, say, an ABC, a CBS, an NBC, where you can get it if it's local in your area and you can pick it up. So they're trying to grow just kind of grassroots, and they want anything they can get. Thus, the IFL comes into play. Is it a unique sport? Yes. Is anyone else covering it? No. Do we have the capability of adding it to our roster? Yes, because we need sports content badly to keep up with our competitors. And the IFL is looking at them and going, well, they're the ones giving us the easiest access to get on any potential national coverage. Plus, they also give you a nice production value, something I have a problem with the other three, with the three leagues in general. Honestly, the IFL, some of the local productions on the streams, and I can say the NAL and the CIF as well, to the average fan are off-putting. They're low quality. They kind of remind me of like high school, broadcasts in terms of like cable, like public access. And I get it. It's free on YouTube. But if we're talking professional, you have to give off that look. So the Stadium broadcast, which they started putting on YouTube mid-season, those look good, and they are good announcers too. Fun fact, two of those announcers that are on there, the play-by-plays, Noah Reed, as well as Mick Tidrow, they were in my graduating class at Ball State University. So a little fun fact for you guys out there, both of them are quality acts. And Noah might not be in mine, but he was at Ball State at the time I was there. They're good talents, and they pull it off pretty well. And the broadcasts look crisp. The cameras look crisp. That's what they want. I don't think they're getting much money. I think they're getting exposure and looking professional, something that a lot of people in this community want to see more of in terms of the IFL. Professional look, no slip-ups, make yourselves look like you're trying to get to that next level and be one of those top sports in the U.S.
Exactly. And I think that's a struggle that a lot of alternative leagues have, really, in terms of on the field, like professional play and a high level of play. Because all of the leagues that we've seen, the AF, XFL, Spring League, all the national TV deals, and where it comes at is the field. And it's really the same fight, really, where, like you said, the airtime and getting on there and really just looking professional and bring out the brand. I know, like, it's kind of a tough attraction because there's always the sort of perception of this about football, like this being kind of bush league and low level. I mean, and I've been telling my friend how, like, that there's kind of like a ladder how it goes, like in terms of like making it to the league. Like there's no official minor league system in football for the NFL, right. But you have, of course, indoor leagues. I feel like indoor leagues are at the bottom of that pecking order, and then whatever spring league is there, then the CFL, and then the NFL. Like if you want to follow that path towards even getting a shot at the practice squad. So all those things are good for the league as well. And I guess we'll see in the long run whether the stadium broadcasts get traction, or whether the streams get better for a lot of these local teams. Because watching the Spokane, it was a Spokane Massachusetts Pirates game, and I remember there was like they had a blackout mid game, and I mean the stream just went off, and it just wasn't a good look at all. I mean, I lost interest, honestly, but in the long run, we'll see.
Right. I've seen streams, Omar, that have been like a camera's gone back to an intern that's trying to fix it or is totally clueless as to what's happening. And they just they couldn't switch it back to the game. And I'm pretty sure that was an IFL contest, but that's just stuff. Like, again, it's all about, more I do stuff like this with these leagues and just talking about it, it's about appealing to the casual fan. Diehard football fans, they love football. They're just going to love football. It's as simple as that. As long as it's good enough quality, you're going to drag them in. That's the thing. It's all about the casual fans, the people that want to think, that go, oh, my friends are at this. This is cool. This is the unique thing to do. Or everyone's out there watching it. I'm going to be like that. The NFL kind of effect, I know the players and I know that, and you want to promote the product to where it's fine for everyone to see, and it doesn't feel weird to watch for some. Professional looks help with that case, and I think, of course, being on a broadcast network like that, you get some more word of mouth spread too. And also got to mention the IFL social game, since they went into pandemic mode, it's skyrocketed. Pre-pandemic IFL was average at best, I thought, social media wise, videos and at least releases like that, graphics, highlights, they were somewhat there, but it wasn't like up to a level of a quality product. But in terms of a modern promotion of any sports league, they have been, I won't say top notch, but pretty close to it this season at getting quality looks on their social media across the league. So that's another aspect I think you need to mention too, with professionalism and looking the part. That's a piece in the modern world that they have so far been doing very well, if not close to perfecting at times over the course of the season.
Yeah, IFL is a social team, especially on Twitter. I mean, the scores are right there, right after the game. It's awesome. You always know like who's playing the game of the week because they'll hype that multiple times in the week
Yes, indeed.
and post it. It works well, and it's great. So I give big kudos to the IFL's Twitter team and social media team for sure. I guess moving on from this topic on to expansion back east. What are some cities that you'd like to see the IFL expand to? Because I kind of wonder whether they'd be well suited going to like Philadelphia and picking up where the Soul left off. We saw New York City kind of fall flat on their face with the New York streets recently.
Yeah.
And there's also the Jersey Flight. So like, where would you like to see the IFL expand if they're gonna go east?
Ooh, see, that's tough. I think you need for the IFL and for many in the league, you're gonna have to pick cities that are kind of an in between, because I imagine none of those West Coast, even Midwest teams, like say a Sioux Falls or a Green Bay, don't want to give up too much ground to where, like, if you're going to New York, credit that helps Massachusetts, but then that puts two teams in a position where they're mostly flying out. I think you want to find something that at least is middle ground where maybe a bus is plausible for a few. They're still going to fly out, but it slightly mitigates. It's going to be a longer process depending on how they expand, if they want to continue to do this rapid expansion the way they're doing, and if they find enough ownership groups. If I'm picking cities, I wish I could. It's funny because Louisville was kind of that middle ground. So I was kind of hoping Louisville would work out. Columbus is coming into play next year. So you do have that. So maybe maybe you can look at Ohio. I know Toledo has been a city that a lot of people feel like it's that small, but not too small market type of vibe that a lot of the IFL and other indoor leagues try and go for. And it actually almost had an arena team back in 2009 by the Bullfrogs. There was concepts and everything they were drawing up for the arena football too. So people actually I've talked to, they want to see that come back. Maybe you can bring that kind of gem into play. Other small but not too small cities. I mean, Indianapolis, where I live, credit there's an AAL team here, but if I'm being honest, Omar, the AAL is kind of dissolved and looking really, really small right now. And you could probably have the IFL sweep in, get a team, and then you can kind of have this connection where it's almost like Des Moines going to Indy, going to Columbus to Massachusetts. Then you have kind of like a line, almost like a train, like almost like a railroad, if you will, of teams, somewhat mitigates cost if you want, and it's Midwestern. Because like I said, I think you're not going to fully jump east. I think you're going to want to do teams that are out there. Nashville, that's another city that's out there. It's growing. That's the case there. It has a history. Now, credit, you probably wouldn't be able to use the Nashville Cats because the NAL owns that logo, but you'd be able to maybe try and beat them to their own market because they haven't jumped there yet and they're being too slow about it, if you ask me. Other places I could guess, you could try St. Louis, if you want. I think that's one that's closer. And actually, I think that's in terms of all the West Coast teams, I think they'd be even fine with that because, hey, in terms of Green Bay, in terms of like the Dakotas, we can make that work, And then there's a few others, I think, in terms of like looking down at Texas, looking down in the South, again, more trying to just kind of meet halfway or just teams that I think would jump ship. For example, the Amarillo Venom, they were a CIF team. They then did a Lone Star series for this year. I don't know if they'll be in the CIF, but they give out a professional look. You can add another Texas team if you want. It adds another kind of dominating that Midwest to Mid-South type of vibe. But I'll tell you what, just to give you my top choices, I'm going to say my top choices put either St. Louis, Indianapolis, or Toledo. Those three, and I think you'll get at least a Midwest, but it's closer for Massachusetts, and it starts moving more and more exposure to the IFL eastward, something that it's not as much available out here. It's still more of a West Coast-based league. Stadium broadcasts help, but it's really West Coast. You want to start slowly moving back out there, and also you don't want to move too fast out east as well. Again, cost reduction is still a key factor for them, and you want to still keep growing. So yeah, pick like Midwest. I wouldn't mind Indianapolis. I'd be going out to games every week. I was going to Louisville the first two of the first 3 games in Louisville, and that's a 2-hour drive for me. I went out and watched the Extreme. So, I'll gladly be sitting there with a season ticket pass watching wherever they go. Probably if they're going to go here, the Indiana Farm Bureau Coliseum, which is at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis. That seats about 6,000. So that's probably right around the range the IFL would want, at least to start out. I'd say that's a place you can go and you'd sell some tickets there.
I think that's an interesting point about slowly progressing towards the east and starting with Midwest, especially Ohio. I didn't think about Ohio. Of course, Columbus has a huge tradition in the AFL, and then you mentioned Toledo, even Akron playing on the pro football heritage
Yeah,
and like having the Akron pros or anything. But for me, something that I thought about is, and I know this seems kind of weird, but I guess trying Maine again, but also bringing in Vermont and taking advantage of Burlington, Vermont, because as we know what happened with the minor leagues, they had the reduction in the minor leagues. And while the Vermont Lake Monsters they were in the New York Penn League, and now they're just playing collegiate summer ball, which I mean isn't really high stakes, and I'm not really sure what the attendance figures are for that, but I can't imagine they're as high as they were when they were actually affiliated with Major League Baseball. And I figured just taking advantage of these like barren markets out east, trying again Maine the right way, working the schedule around when the Portland Sea Dogs, the Red Sox affiliate, plays. Because really, I think in those areas, like especially in Albuquerque, you're competing more with the minor league teams. I mean, with
that's
with
football.
with minor league sports, like um, sometimes you have to make the choice: are you going to go to see Saturday Night Fireworks at the Albuquerque Ice Sox game, or are you going to watch the Duke City Gladiators? It's like stuff like that. So if they can find a way to work in those really barren sports markets, because like Vermont, I don't know if Vermont has any other pro teams other than the Lake Monsters. Same thing with like an area like New Hampshire. No, New Hampshire is like the Fisher Cats in shoot, I don't even know what city in New Hampshire, but really New England's a very barren sports landscape. And I figured in doing that and getting a couple cities in New England, bringing back Maine, bringing Vermont to the fold, you can start sort of divisional play. And then maybe, four divisions, four champions, maybe do a NFL Formula 2 wild cards and just go from there too, because I think there's a lot of revenue to be gained from playoff TV. And even too, like if they did a model, because something that I guess I wasn't really a fan of in terms of IFL playoffs. So the games were concurrent, and you can access them anytime you want. But if there is like some sort of way that the league can do like a whip around coverage, like an NFL, like an IFL red zone type thing,
Oh,
where you
yeah.
whip around all the games at the same time for the playoffs, or like I always joke about this about like branding when you have NBC with Football Night in America, Fox with Baseball Night in America, do an indoor football league night in America where you whip around and see all the games, like all touch. I really think that would be something that would be really exciting for getting these fans in. But that would be my thing. I really think that the IFL has to get Massachusetts a travel partner almost immediately, because I mean expanding to California, I mean it might be just one game a year, but that's still a long flight for the Bay Area Panthers, the Spokane Shock, and who else. But
Right,
yeah.
right. The only other thing I can think of with the Massachusetts Pirates that they would look to do, and I don't know if they're doing it, but if you have the league supplement their travel cost, which is basically the league takes the loss on that to help keep them afloat and build their product. That's the other way you can mitigate that too. But expand out east is kind of what we're saying, and I understand that completely. Get your product established on the opposite side of the coast, and make it out. Also, Western New York. I feel bad I didn't even mention that, considering that's also a middle ground, like Rochester or Syracuse. I think those would be some solid places. You could try Buffalo as another one too. Buffalo has an AFL history. The Columbus Destroyers were originally the Buffalo Destroyers, so you could also try that if you wanted. Who knows?
I forget how close really Western New York is to kind of like that sort of like entry into the middle Midwest. Like my friend said that it's like a 7-8 hour drive from like upstate New York, like Rochester, up to like Michigan. It's really weird, but yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah,
that's totally a great point. But we'll have to see with the IFL. I think still with this expansion, I think they're really killing the game right now. I just looked beforehand. I know the NAL is expanding a little bit with a couple of other teams. I'm not sure. You can probably verify, but I saw looking at the Wikipedia, they have the West Virginia Rough Riders returning in 2022 and the Ontario Bandits. I just want to verify with you if that's true or not.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that out. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm definitely much more attuned with ownership in the NAL. And me and my co-host talk to these guys at times. The Bandits are pretty much done, from what I can tell. I don't foresee them coming back. I think they kind of put that out there as almost like a test, I think, but that ownership group did not pan out correctly. That's why they pulled out at the end, right before the season start. So that one ugly situation kind of. So I would say that's a no-go. The Rough Riders, it sounds like it's kind of this middle ground. I think I want to say they're back from kind of the hints that I'm thrown, but it all depends on, because they have like kind of conglomerate ownership group. So like one owner's really kind of like gung ho and seems like they're back, but that doesn't mean the others are. So you have to wait and see. I want to say that they will be. I have a good feeling they will. They have a good fan base in Wheeling, West Virginia. The arena is decent sized and it also packs in well. And it's kind of a cool setup, and the NAL needs teams. So, why not get that 7th team back at least? And then, from all I understand, they're trying to get to, I think, max, or at least max 10 some point at the end of this year. Supposedly expansion news is supposed to be coming soon. And we were told that maybe it was supposed to happen during the NAL championship game. That didn't come to fruition. And we're still sitting here with kind of our hands up in the air going, hey, where's that news at? So some point it's going to happen. They're going to expand, but we're just kind of, at least here for me and my buddy at Inside the Walls, we're just twiddling our thumbs right now, waiting. Like that's all we can do. I think at least 8 by the end of the season. I think West Virginia comes back and you'll at least get one new team with a new ownership group coming in.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I think 8's a good sweet spot too, because if you want to work divisions, you can do the top 2 finishers in each division, easy playoff setup, or like the top 4 in the conference and have competitive playoffs. So we'll have
Yeah.
to see with them. I do think it's interesting that that the Orlando Predators, I guess, haven't really joined forces with the IFL being the brand name that they are, former AFL members. But I think it's just them sort of staying with that geography that works for them, which is good on them as well, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's like we talk here. It's all about regions right now. But if you can get more money and at least more capital where you can justify those costs and, grow, that's what everyone's looking at. No, I think some of the worry in the community is they look at how the AFL went under and how it got in the 2000s, this grandiose state of being on NBC. And you had the rock star owners and the NFL owners, and they weren't actually doing that good behind the scenes. They, sure, on paper and on television, they were looking good, but financially, it was kind of skidding the line this entire time. So I think a lot of those guys, which a lot of them were involved with AFL that are in these new leagues, they don't want to repeat that. So I almost feel like you're being careful now, since all of them see an opportunity with the AFL's branding kind of underneath, and it's supposed to come back in 2023, but there's not much info about it. There's an opportunity. So you want to be careful, but you also want to take the advantage of what you have, and no one wants to repeat history. So, we'll find out. The AFL was a great product. It's unfortunate that it went under the way it did, but everyone knows so many of the reasons why, and they don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing right now, why it's regional. And I think the IFL is being, at least to me, the first one that's saying, let's try and dip our toes and go national in the next few years.
I mean, it is kind of a vacuum at the moment. I will say that, definitely. Like, I mean, I guess it kind of feels like I guess I remember watching the 30 for 30 with the XFL and them talking about Vince McMahon consolidating all the regional wrestling entities. That's what it kind of feels like, a wild, wild
Oh
west
yeah.
at the moment. So maybe someone's gonna write a book about this in the future. We'll see, because it's certainly interesting, like which league will come out on top. But as of right now, as we sort of bring this podcast to a close, I want to hear your prediction for the IFL playoffs. Who do you think is going to come out on top out of the 4 teams left?
Oh man, I watched as much as I could. Of course, all of them being around the same time. It's kind of hard to flip between them on YouTube and Stadium. But Just looking at the field, it's hard to not pick the Rattlers, but something about the Massachusetts Pirates just has me screaming that it's got to be them. Very well-rounded roster, took it to the Rattlers at the end of the season, actually. And, if it wasn't for the fact the Rattlers as their own unit and how good Kevin Guy coaches them up are that, well, at least balanced, the Pirates could have finished off as the first seed in this entire mess. We maybe be talking about championship game in Worcester instead. But I think you're going to see the Pirates go to Arizona, and you're going to see, I think you'll see the Rattlers lose at home for the second straight year in the United Bowl. It'll be tragic for those Rattlers fans listening in, but I like defensively what the Pirates are doing. Al Benefield is throwing a good ball right now. And I'm going to tell you now, Thomas Owens, now week one when I saw week one when I saw him against the Louisville Extreme there watching Massachusetts Pirates play, the whole talk was about, for example, Martavius Bryant being on that roster. Bryant was there for a little spell, but Thomas Owens has been a surprise this season. Really has stood out, really is quite a weapon. I think that you're going to see Massachusetts pull it out. Credit Frisco's going to be a hard out themselves. Both are defensive teams, by the way, the Pirates being the best defense in the IFL. Frisco's not too far behind if you've seen their track record this year, but I think that they have the balanced unit to take out the Fighters, and I think you're going to see them take out the Rattlers in Arizona. In terms of Duke City, just for touching on them, the Gladiators' glass cannons is as crazy as it seems. I mean, Nate Davis is slinging it. It's not even close to how good he is right now in the IFL. I mean, Drew Powell's all around amazing, and he's definitely a running quarterback. First off, not surprised. I'm actually surprised there's not more running QBs in the IFL like Drew Powell for how good, effective he is. But Nate Davis is definitely being the best arm talent right now in the IFL, and definitely seems to have the best receiving core around him too. I think you might see a kind of a shootout, but this is going to be the Rattlers' game. Defensively, they just have a little too much, and the Gladiators are kind of a mess on defense most outings at times. So yeah, I don't know, in a roundabout way, in explaining those last three contests, give me the Pirates. We'll go 45-35 in a victory in their first ever United Bowl and their first ever season in the IFL.
You kind of break my heart there talking about the Gladiators, stuff like that.
I know.
I'm hoping for a Borja type bowl, a Borja Bowl in the title game. Living in Worcester and watching the New England Surge growing up, got a soft spot in my heart for the Pirates. The Gladiators, I will admit, this year being their first year in the league has been a little bit tough, and I was kind of surprised when they picked it up towards the end, pleasantly surprised. They do have the hot hand, but yeah, defense at times has not been great, and that was sort of exacerbated by the whole kicking situation. I went to 3 home games over the summer, and that kicking situation, it was funny at times. It was funny, but it wasn't funny. It was funny that they're shuffling guys in. Oh, they got the backup quarterback kicking extra points, but it wasn't funny as a fan. Like seeing seeing them do the onside kicks. But I'm hoping they got this figured out. I've switched more to college football in the past couple of weeks, so I haven't watched teams much. I've tracked the scores, but definitely uphill battle against Arizona too, and on the road too. In Phoenix, should be tough. Massachusetts, I feel like they're just the hot hand in the league. And really all the late game finishes, this feels like a sort of special cardiac kids type team. So I will agree and say Pirates versus Rattlers in the title game. And I do think the Pirates take it, but I'm being a bit of a homer since I lived in Worcester for 10 years. So
I think, but there's good reasons though. See, like, it's not like you're a homer and you're just going, well, it's my home team. I mean, that's obviously why. No, I mean, there's reasons you can list off why this could be the case. I mean, not to mention the Pirates also beat the Rattlers this year anyway, so there's proof in the pudding. It's happened once; it can happen again.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty excited. And like, I guess it kind of just shows like that whole, I guess, Boston sports scene. I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know, I'd hate to consider Worcester being in Central Mass as like Boston, but why not just clump them together? Massachusetts sports scene, just like, I guess, culture champions right down to the indoor football.
Sure.
So it should be interesting to see, especially the United Bowl. It's kind of cool that they have a name for the game, other than just like the IFL title, the United Bowl. And it's pretty cool. So we'll see. What day is the United Bowl on? Is that, I assume that's a Saturday against competing against college football, which is kind of
Yeah,
unfortunate.
it's going to be I'm going to assume it's a Saturday. I actually need to look that up, but based on just the scheduling, because they don't take a bye week like the NFL, it's going to be. And my guess is September 11th. So you're going to be watching on that time. And if I'm going to guess the timings, considering that the IFL will probably schedule it to be more based in a West Coast audience where it'll be unique, they'll probably schedule like 8 or 9 o'clock Eastern time so that the West Coast can watch it at say 5 or 6 o'clock when they get in. So that's probably what's going to be the case. But yeah, set your reminders for Saturday, September 11th. It'll be a good game. I think these four have been really good teams this year. Duke State has been exciting to watch. I'm going to be honest. And, the fact that they were the darlings of the CIF and coming over here and rattling some teams here in the IFL, that's kind of nice to see.
Yeah, no, exciting is one way to put it, man. Nate Davis, absolutely exciting to watch. And like, it's kind of cool. They have like a lot of the guys in the old core with from the CIF days. Like, you still got Dello Davis, my brother's favorite player. So should be fun to watch.
Dello Davis, that does a thing against the Barnstormers. That game-winning touchdown that they had with that kind of like trick run, reverse, whatever to the side. I was just blown away by that. Excellent play.
Yeah,
and also Nate Davis, Ball State alum. So, I'll give him a thumbs up every time.
Yeah, no, he's great. I think I sent my brother. My brother got one of his rookie cards signed. Just because it's cool. I mean, my 10-year-old brother. So, should be exciting. And I mean, alternative football, it's here to stay. It's really great. It's great content for sure. It's a great product they put out. So if you have time, DVR it, find it on YouTube, watch it on YouTube after college football or pro football. But it's just, I know I'll be trying to. It's just a great product, and especially with the playoff race that's this exciting with underdog teams and tightly contested at the top, should be great to watch. And as we draw to a close, Zach, do you have anything final to say? Any final remarks or anything?
Only thing I got to say is that, the world of football is expanding more and more the last few years. Outside the IFL and the NAL, I'm looking forward to whatever the world happens with the XFL, even hopefully the USFL turns out well too. But, for those listening in, if you're curious mind and if you're looking for something else to watch, if you feel like the NFL has gotten stale at times, or if you want something that's maybe in between and not fully college football, check this stuff out. I think that's the main thing I want to take away. It's like, don't just once people leave college or don't make the NFL, don't shove those athletes under the rug. These people are still talented. These leagues help highlight those talents. It's not lower quality, in my opinion. I think that it still is high quality football. The IFL, in terms of that case, for what it is in the arena scene and for what it is, at least in terms of minor league system, as much as you can call it, that is the minor league system, is really indoor and arena. And as long as there's no spring leagues in active duty right now, that's one of your best places to get at least some more film. So, praise some of these guys for going on a journey and, taking a chance still to play football past college, or, say it didn't work in the NFL at first. Some of these guys develop careers in these arena leagues, just how it is. Don't throw people away just after you see them in these other leagues. That's my final thoughts. Go enjoy and, let's pump up these alternate leagues. They deserve love a lot more than some people give them.
100% agree. And even then, the value of playing, I remember that guy, especially for a college fan like me, watching Spokane play and seeing so many guys, from the group of five, like Lamar Jordan, from my hometown Lobos, absolutely, like, returning kicks on Duke City, coming back to Albuquerque and returning kicks to the house. It's fun to see, really. Like, you never know who you're going to see, who pops up in these leagues as a college fan. So I'll just add that. Zach, you've been great. Thank you. Hopefully we'll have you on another time with this league movement. I love these leagues and I love talking about them. It's great to find others that do as well. And before we go, can you just tell people about the Gridiron Gallery and the Inside the Walls podcast, and I'll put in the description for this podcast when we post it.
Sure, really appreciate that. So Gridiron Gallery, you can always catch Fridays. That's always premiering, any podcast platform you can think of. Social media wise, you can find it at Grid Gallery Pod. Again, that's at Grid Gallery Pod for Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the announcements for releases, or if you're on Twitter and you want to just follow along to our retweets and anything of just kind of highlighting the leagues we touch on, that's where you can find all that stuff there. Inside the Walls, similar deal. It's at InWalls Pod. Again, that is at InWalls Pod. We mainly cover the National Arena League. Still debating if we'll jump full IFL, but I think that might be happening just if we get our situation order between my guests. But again, that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find us as well. Find us on your favorite podcast platform. And one last remark, Gridiron Gallery you can find on YouTube as well. Just search Gridiron Gallery. Inside the Walls podcast, we're planning on doing YouTube come 2022.
Sounds great. Yeah, we'll have that in the description as well. And again, thank you, Zach, for coming on and just discussing, a great league, great leagues, and a great game. So till next time for the Between the Stripes Podcast Network, it's me, Omar, and Zach, our guest, and peace, love, and soul, everyone.